Secure's and Price for Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365, coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealers Studio here at the historic Wall Center. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. I'm Matt. He's Blake. Mike, all his Junos, hitting switches, conducting things with intern Quinlan Curry. We got a big show planned for you. Another early edition here with the Canucks. Once again, a 4 p.m. start time. I guess last time was 4:30. I did love that Prime Video game presentation. I watched the entirety of eavesdropping, as they call it, the warm-up.
Yeah.
And there is some narration now. When they started, it was just...
silence and game effects. But
the intermissions are a trip, I'll say that. Oh, boy.
The energy is something else,
We've gone creative here.
Unconventional.
Adnan putting on his Scorsese hat and directing all sorts of...
The movie references are nonstop. Marty Supreme from Marty St. Louis.
They're trying to make movies or at least SNL sketches in those intermissions.
Yes, with the Chicklets boys. Tyson Nash's hair. That's a spectacle
to behold on its own.
Yeah, he is going his own way there.
But, Blake, the crispness of the picture is just magnificent.
And I don't mind the difference in energy.
I don't either.
I think it's going to be an acquired taste. And Adnan's a friend of the show, but it's a different energy to the whole show, and I don't mind that.
And I also find it's a bit of a palate cleanser, particularly when you're marching through a dreadful season.
Yeah.
That it's a game where, it's not Shorty and Ray or Shorty and Dave. And don't get me wrong, I like all of those guys, but nice to have a little bit of difference from time to time when the storyline for the Canucks just continues unabated.
Forsland is good. He's very American, though. It's a very American style of call.
Yeah. I actually watch when the Canucks play the Kraken and the games on the local Seattle NBC affiliate. I often watch on that.
Yes.
Which is also Forsland.
The American style, by the way, is everything is exciting. There are no down moments in the game.
Mike Doc Emmerich, where everything is exciting.
Offside.
And I've said this in the past. I often feel like that is very much underpinned by a please like my sport. Look at how exciting it is.
I hear it.
Devils with a near chance. Langenbrunner off the left wing.
We don't get much feedback in Major League Soccer, but they do like that.
They do like that.
They like it for soccer.
Are you a little too sedated for them? Do you need to really crank it up when you're doing an Apple game as opposed to when you're doing a TSN game?
I mean, no. I'm me. I don't change my call, but
it's just Blake Price.
It's just Blake Price. It says that in the Twitter handle.
Yes.
But yeah, I generally like to build towards the big moments rather than just every moment is a big moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's subjective. Whatever you like.
I've had that conversation with people around the league before because Mike Doc Emmerich, of course, longtime New Jersey Devils play-by-play man, sort of known as the Dean of American hockey play-by-play guys. And don't get me wrong, there were American hockey play-by-play guys long before Doc, especially in the original 6 cities. But, Mike on network television for so long. And, yes, a very, very breathless, high energy, everything is exciting call.
Yeah, and I don't think it's as conscious as what you said about please like my sport. It is. You're going to like the sport. Look how exciting it is.
I think everything in American hockey circles is underpinned by the insecurity of not being football, baseball, or basketball.
No, I know, but I don't think they're trying to win you over with a hope and a please. It's look how exciting this is. Mm-hmm. Icing, super exciting. Offside, super exciting. You're going to want to see this.
And in fairness, I like a number of the American play-by-play guys. I like Bob Wischusen a lot. Mm-hmm. I like Levy. So, anyways, Just different.
Yeah.
Let's get to our daily poll question. Is there any reason to fire Adam Foote right now? You can vote yes. You can vote no. Do so at the Secure Some Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price, what says you?
I think there is. And those that want a tank commander, I get your protestation of this. Here's what I would say to the folks that are in that. No, he's a great tank commander. This team's not winning, guys. Like, you could bring in prime Scotty Bowman, and this team is not winning.
No, but the question is, do they win more?
No, I
and
don't.
Do they jeopardize 32nd place in the NHL?
And I would venture to say no, they do not. This team just doesn't have the horses to be, and I'll say much better, because does it mean the difference of 4 points? Yes, but I don't think that's going to be critical. I think the Canucks are comfortably going to be a 31st or 32nd place team in the NHL. Comfortably. And it doesn't matter who's coaching. What I would say is deployment, use of young players, and total system. How you want to coach those young players going forward. Lay down the building blocks for those young players now. Again, I don't think it's going to make you win anymore. But the habits that you want those young players to be in, the system that you want them to play in 4 years from now when you hope to be winning games, why not get the early seeds of that in now versus this system, which seems to absolutely confound every single player, particularly seasoned veterans even, who have been around the block and have played on a dozen coaches in their career. They seem confused and go no further than the highlights of 4 guys in one corner on various plays.
Well, 4 guys clustered several times last night. I hear your mouth in terms of with the injuries to Demko and Sherwood, this may well be unavoidably 32nd place.
And they're going to trade more guys. You would think.
Well,
you would think.
Well, so is there a reason to fire Adam Foote? There are plenty. You're the worst record in the NHL, and you were trying to be good this year. Like, this wasn't a Seattle or San Jose where you knew you were in for it. You're rebuilding, you're tanking. Said it many times, but there wasn't a single other NHL team that would have hired Adam Foote as head coach. In fact, I'm not sure any would have interviewed Adam Foote for a head coaching vacancy. It is an absolute dreadful defensive system, as you outlined, that does not fit the personnel, or the personnel have been unable to play it. So you're past the halfway point of the NHL season. Installation is still an issue with your defensive system. And then, of course, he was supposed to be the Quinn whisperer, right? One of the reasons why you hired this guy was Operation Keep Quinn Hughes.
That's right.
And now Quinn gone. And he's been gone for a month. But he's a useful tank commander.
Just said, I'm not too worried about
So
this
I voted no.
winning.
You voted yes?
I voted yes.
Mike, break the tie.
I'm 100% yes. I don't like like they're gonna tank no matter what. Like he said, I don't think a coach is gonna Bruce their way back into playoff
even with
contention.
good teams. We've had this
Mike.
debate before. Like, even with good teams, what's the difference from one coach to the next? So if you have an average coach and you get a good coach, what's the difference to even guiding a good team? Maybe it's a 6-point swing for the season, much less half a season with a terrible team. I don't think it's going to mean that much.
Incidentally, we're not too far away from getting a camera there in the producer's booth for Mike. I've made this known. We call on Mike from time to time. He should be shown.
And well, you should see him too. Statuesque, 6'4", chiseled, long flowing hair. You're gonna love him when you see him.
Do I need to start shaving regularly?
Well, neither of us do. Is that 2 or 3 days you got going on there?
Yeah. Shaving.
Neither of us are daily shavers, Mike. So
No.
you're in a good boat there. Okay, so there's the poll question. Votes, Secure Some Price X and YouTube channels. We're already 2,000 plus votes on X. People want in on this, and a lot of replies too.
Yes. People want to
Holy
expand.
cow, are you guys replying?
Yeah.
Like, we were 100+ replies on yesterday's poll. We're 60+ already today. I'll say this. I got to hand it to this market and Canucks fans. Your passion endures. Don't get me wrong. I understand there will be a lot of casuals who have checked out on this here because of how terrible it's gone.
Well, they're checked
But
out.
I am super impressed with the number of people who still care deeply, and want to continue having the debate about where this franchise should go short-term, mid-term, long-term. I've said it countless times on this show for 14 years. This is a highly, highly intelligent hockey market.
Well, I think people have maybe given up on watching the games, but they haven't given up listening to the show, watching the show, and others to
I
keep
think they
track
have
of
games
the
on
future.
in the background.
Yeah.
I would bet that there's a lot of people for whom, when the Canucks are doing well, the focus is the screen and the game, especially between whistles. Whereas now, I would bet a lot of you have the game on while you're doing household chores.
They're not combing through it like they
Yeah,
used to.
you're not watching as intensely,
Yeah.
but you still care deeply. And honestly, that is the one thing that should resonate at Rogers Arena and with Canucks Sports and Entertainment. You are so lucky because you are such horrible owner-operators of a professional sports franchise, and you still manage to have customers.
Mm-hmm.
You still manage to have people who feel an emotional attachment to your team. We have talked about this countless times over the course of this show, 14 years. Sports is unlike any other business. You're not selling a good, and you're really not selling a service unless you count a couple of hours of entertainment a few times a week as a service. You are reliant on the emotional bond of your community, of your constituents with the club, and its investment into your wins and losses. And you still have that after all of this. It's remarkable.
But,
So good on the hockey fans of Vancouver and British Columbia for putting up with this yet again.
bad owners do get good results from time to time, though, too.
Yep.
Like I don't think anybody was extolling the virtues of Jeremy Jacobs.
No, for forever, Jeremy Jacobs was a villain in Boston because do just enough, spend just enough to make the playoffs. Remember, they had the long postseason streak going, but don't do enough to win a Stanley Cup. Well, that narrative died in 2011.
Before
as we
last
know.
season, though, they had a 76-point season last year, the Bruins did. Before that, just looking at the full seasons, you can go all the way back to 2007, 2008. That's when it started. Their worst season was 93 points. Just think about that. That's over 2 decades. Or 2 decades worth.
That's right. That's right there too. I mean, that's either in the playoffs or competing for the playoffs.
And that's
each and
the
every
worst.
season.
That's
Yep.
the low bar. Never mind 135-point season in there as well,
Yeah.
and cups. Like,
It's outstanding.
and then there's other teams that had tough ownership. Look at the Ottawa Senators, who the Canucks face tonight. Not great ownership for a long, long time. They get a change in ownership. New car smell owner. Still can't do it. Still can't put it
Well, they
together.
made the playoffs last year,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And now
And-
struggling again.
Well, the analytics on this team are insane. Like, Travis Green is coaching him and his staff are doing a very good job.
They're a 500 team. Just
They
about.
cannot get a save. They're the worst team in the NHL save percentage and total save percentage and 5-on-5 save percentage. But no, I mean,
And you might say, hey, that's
teams,
just
I went out to watch the Senators. I had a friend in town who was a fan. We went out and watched the Utah game last week. They played very well. Couldn't buy a goal. Couldn't get a save when they needed. They lose again.
And you might say, oh, they're so close then. If all they just need is But there's 32 teams that have to deal with a guy that can give them a save. Like, that is part of the totality of the equation. So when you look at a Boston record like that, 20 years of winning, like 20 years, they had to make sure their power play was decent. Their penalty kill was decent. They were getting the save when everybody's dealing with the same factors and variables, folks. So you can't just fritter away a team that says, but they just can't get a save. Yeah, everybody has to deal with that.
They are, however, relapsing into Melnickdom after last week's statement on Linus Ullmark.
Yes.
I'm doing Ottawa radio in about an hour from now, and I told them, look, we'll lend you the ponies. You can stable the ponies. We will keep the dogs kenneled here in Vancouver, right? Who are the dog and pony shows of the NHL? For a good part of the last decade, it's been the Vancouver Canucks and Ottawa Senators.
This is General Hospital versus All My Children in terms
really
of soap
is.
operas.
Battle of the Network Stars. We should get them on an obstacle course.
Young and the Restless, maybe? I think Young and the
in
Restless.
a pool.
Maybe the best rep. The Canucks are Y&R. For sure they are. Longest, most storied history of soap operas. Got to be them.
Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing.
We both got the memo today.
Usually wear mine on a Tuesday for further notice.
Oh, really? You've
Yellow
got
Dog
a
Brewing
schedule?
neighborhood. I don't have a schedule per se.
He does. He does.
I tend to wear the S&P hat on the Monday.
Oh, okay.
So Tuesday, my world opens up, and I love this Yellow Dog hat. Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. How low can they go? Canucks lose a seventh straight, a season worst, fourth in regulation, now firmly in last place of the NHL, 2 points behind the Jets, who have a game in hand. The tank is being executed flawlessly. This is how you tank, ladies and gentlemen.
That was a little better in terms of how you tank.
This is Michael Dukakis' campaign trail in a tank.
Young players contributing. Elias Pettersson, who's probably not going anywhere, looking good, better. That's your Exhibit A tank. Now, goals against is a little high, but not bad.
This is a James Garner tank.
James Garner tank?
Do you not remember the 1984 feature film Tank starring James Garner?
Right. I love James Garner.
All right. 6-3. They lose at the Cathedral of Hockey to the Montreal Canadiens, who outshoot Vancouver 41-23. It's the fourth time this year the Canucks have given up 40-plus shots. Montreal races 1-0 and 2-1 deficits. Those were the Canucks' first leads of calendar year 2026 in their sixth game of the new annum. Canucks won 7-2, outscored 46-22 in their last 10. Despite all that, Adam Foote, head coach, and let me ask, does his head not look perfect for a tank commander's helmet? Could you not see him in a green, oval, military, army green helmet?
I think it's a big cranium. It'll be a big helmet. It's a lot of iron.
Every time I see him now, I envision him with a helmet, a military helmet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Adam Foote once again says they were right there.
And we were right there. It was, like I said, it was 3-3. Started the third. We just can't have two quick mistakes. It's hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
Playoffs were right there. Game was right there.
Well, but he's not wrong. Like, Canucks got dominated early, but they come out of the first period 1-1. They give up two quick ones. Alexander Carrier, have yourself a night. 2 goals in 20 seconds. But they get the equalizer. 3-3 after 2. Then 30 seconds into the first, and then a minute into the first, and then,
The waveform of...
I went to the fridge between the first and the second goal. I went to the fridge to get myself a little snack.
Yeah.
And then she goes, I think you missed another goal. I'm like, no, I think that they just scored. She's like, no. I think they scored again.
I thought it was a replay because I was sort of, again, half
hearing it from the other room.
Yeah.
I was like, is that another goal? It sure was another goal.
Mm-hmm.
This from Adam Kiersonblad of the Hockey News. Tell me if you concur. Adam Foote really needs to stop dropping the quote, "we were right there" in his post games. Yes, the score was tied, but Montreal had a 27-14 shots advantage after 2 periods. Canucks lost the total shot battle 41-23. Is "we were right there" becoming a verbal crutch for this head coach that he really ought to dispense with?
Well, again, it is where it originates in his soul. And Adam Foote is, I believe, saying it from the originating path of, we're right there, we're a good team, we can make the playoffs. I feel like that's the we were right there that he was talking about. A team in charge of a bunch of young lads that are scrapping and fighting to try to establish themselves in an NHL team that performs like this, the "we were right there" originates from the, hey, these kids are learning and they're getting close on a lot of nights. And that was a pretty good effort through 40 minutes. That's a different "we were right there." So the text is not the thing that I have a problem with, Matt. It is where I believe that feeling is coming from for Adam Foote.
Mm-hmm. Brock Boeser's goal drought is now up to 20 games.
Unfathomable.
3 shots last night. That's been his ceiling since his last goal on November 28th against San Jose.
Yeah.
He has not crested 3 shots in a game since, in the 20 games since. 36 shots in the last 20 games. So that's not even 2 per game.
Not a big haul, no.
For a top 6 winger whose best attribute is a short area shooter. And Blake has noted there have been a number of quintessential Brock Boeser opportunities, either from the goaltender's side, bumper down low, the type of opportunities that Brock would have finished in previous years. And you can see the confidence or lack thereof at play when he has those opportunities.
Heel jobs, 3 feet wide, 3 feet high.
I feel terrible for him because
Yeah.
I do believe at the end of the day, Brock is a genuinely decent dude. And we know he's a sensitive sort as well. I mean, this has got to be just... Because the other thing about a player like Boeser, like Marco Rossi, for example, he walks around Vancouver. Yeah, I'm sure a few people will recognize him in these early days, but for the most part, Brock walks around town. Everybody knows who Brock is, right?
Well,
He's got a rep as a good guy, so I think a lot of people feel more comfortable going up to Brock than, say, a Phil Raonic.
Yeah.
And so he has to have these, micro conversations, Canucks conversations as he moves about town.
Now, Pettersson has always been a bigger, more prolific point getter, but, in the last few years, not by a super wide margin. And you can see, Pettersson has put up a very quiet 16 points in his last 20 games. I don't feel any...
Elias has been decent. Don't get me wrong. The lows are low, and you just scratch your head and you go, $11.6 million, and he plays a game like that. Because you don't often see guys like McDavid and McKinnon just have, not that he is that, even the next tier, a couple of tiers down. There are very few times when I watch the opposition when they have sort of that level of player, either aptitude or salary, where I go, wow, he was invisible tonight. He didn't do a whole lot. Elias has far more games like that than other guys of that stature. But for the most part, he's been pretty good. Honestly, Blake, I would say the bulk of this year. No, the points are not there. You're 27 points in 37 games. Do I have that right, or am I a day behind? And again, he's typically a very good defensive player as well. His wingers have been dreadful this year. I mean, Boeser, 20 without a goal. We know how streaky DeBrusk is. Garland's been out some. Look, do I think he's a guy that you can win a cup with as your number one centerman? Absolutely not. But I do think he's having a reasonably good bounce-back season. Not great.
As it pertains to Boeser, though, I still think he's got his B game, Pettersson. I guess his B. It's his B game.
He's shown his B game for the most part this year.
And he's got 26 points or 16 points in 16 points in his last 20 games. My point is, Boeser accidentally should have a goal by now.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
this is Brock. Like, and to put his season in perspective, again, it's 20 without a goal. So, ergo, 43 games minus 20. At the 23-game mark,
He had 9 goals.
He had these 9 goals. Like, that's not bad.
Blake, I believe he was on pace for 32.
Yeah. At the start of this
I believe
streak,
he was 8 in the first 20.
he's still on pace for a 30-goal season.
And now he trails Kiefer Sherwood with 17. Pettersson, Elias, and DeBrusque with 12. Linus Karlsson and Drew O'Connor are up to 10.
Let that wash over you. Linus Karlsson and Drew O'Connor
Are up to 10. So he is tied with Max Sassone, who got his 9th last night, for 6th in team goal scoring. And he's tied for 7th in team scoring points-wise with 21. Although one big night he could go by a few guys.
Linus Karlsson averaging 10 minutes and 59 seconds a game. Brock Boeser, 19 minutes and 11 seconds per game.
He's the second most used winger after Connor Garland.
So that exacerbates those stats.
Think of how much he's used Evander Kane this year. Brock is averaging more than 2 minutes of ice per night more than Evander.
And Drew O'Connor, who's passed him, is at 13:40. So again, 6 minutes. Like, we're talking every 3 games that they play, we're 26. Now they do. If you're scrolling, you see a 5-4 win over Boston. No. Shootout victory. They only scored 4 that night.
Yeah, I suppose so. There is a distinction.
Well, beating goaltenders is a big part of this. Yeah. During the sport of hockey, not a skills competition. That's what we're talking about. This team cannot score goals, and upping the level of skill. It's why I think Jonathan Lekramacky is probably due for a call-up in the not-too-distant future.
Once he's over his illness, if you missed that, Lekramacky had a banger game Saturday for Abbotsford and then wasn't able to go to the next day because of illness. There's been a cold or a bug.
They have a game tomorrow.
Going
Abbotsford
through the
does,
Abbey.
so we'll see what they I don't suspect they bothered flying anybody out for the last game on the road trip into Columbus, but when they come back, we'll see.
So Kiefer Sherwood is out 1 to 3 weeks, according to Adam Foote, who adds it doesn't look promising.
Should I mention Crave first?
Oh,
before
you
we
absolutely
leave?
should. My bad.
Uber Eats is your place on all game days. Download the app if you don't already. Make sure you take advantage of these game day deals. And as we've said, these Eastern time, that's right in the middle of dinner.
Absolutely.
You're not making dinner. You want to watch the game. You want to be able to go to the fridge and fetch a beer.
I need you to focus 100%, laser focus on every second of every Canucks game from here on out.
So somebody has to, because it's not going to be us.
It's a nice shade of green, too. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
I love the shade of green they use.
Decorative. Keep yours around. From game day eats to whatever you need to make it happen, before, during, after the game, Uber Eats assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. And hey, playoffs in the pigskin is coming up, and
That's
you
right.
certainly don't want to
It's
cook
happening.
during those.
It's not just coming up, it's happening.
Oh, this weekend.
Welcome back to the YouTube audience. We lost you there for a moment, but here you are.
Ah.
Sherwood out 1 to 3 weeks. Adam Foote says it doesn't look promising, and this could severely hamper the rebuild if he's too hurt and you can't trade him by the March 6th deadline. Now, still plenty of runway on the calendar, but if he is out 3 weeks, Blake, that might mean he's done playing before the Olympic break on February 5th. The Canucks' final game is February 4th. And then there are just 12 days and 5 games after the Olympics before the trade deadline. Granted, he and his teammates can commence practicing on February 17th with the Olympics still ongoing. So, was he playing through something and this is precautionary? If it's a new injury, what do you do? Shut him down until a trade, accept that trade value has been lost because of the injury? Does it behoove the organization to want to see him playing? Hope to regain or stabilize some of that trade value? What do you do here if it's 3 weeks? Are you anxious to get him in games, or are you just, okay, maybe we don't get a first-round pick and a prospect anymore. Maybe it's a second and a prospect, or maybe it's a second and a lesser prospect. Let's just assume, let's just accept our lot in life, bad luck, and make the deal.
We don't know the
Or are they going to re-sign
exact
him?
injury
they going to re-sign him?
We don't know the exact injury.
No.
So the Canucks know that if it's something that is eminently healable, where there's no worry from an acquiring team about, but is that okay? Is he damaged goods now? Blah, blah, blah. I think his value is his value. Like my hope is it's a deep bone bruise. You got hit by a puck or got banged into the boards and there's a bone bruise there and they just want, it hurts too much to play right now, but it will heal. Well, then I think you can trade him without him setting foot back on the ice for the Vancouver Canucks. But if it's something different that has caught the eye of an acquiring team and they go, oh my God, well, I'm not acquiring him and then having this guy sit out for the next 4 weeks. So they've got a lot more useful information than we do, unfortunately. But I don't think he needs to set foot on the ice. I'll say that in order for a deal to happen. We have seen countless examples of this in time. You can trade an injured player as long as everybody's above board on what's happening. So I don't think you risk it, especially to jump in for like 1 or 2 games before the Olympic break. Like I don't see any point to that.
Pavel Datsyuk, we missed amongst NHL Russians.
Big one.
But I do think you can argue that Fedorov after Ovechkin, and frankly, I'll say again, a complete player who drives winning in a more meaningful way, I think you could argue Fedorov over Ovechkin. Ovechkin is reliant on a playmaking centerman to get him the puck, especially the older Ovechkin. The younger Ovechkin had some,
Who's a more complete player, Datsyuk or Fedorov?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's
the most complete in both directions.
Oh, I mean, you're picking between a Ferrari and a Lamborghini there.
Yeah.
And Datsyuk, so much fun to watch play, in part because of how cerebral he was and the way he can move in small areas. Fedorov, so much fun to play because the way he could just turn on the afterburners.
I'll say this. I think Datsyuk had fewer dry spots in his career. There were some dry spots for Fedorov.
Okay. And McGillney belongs on the list too, but again, Alex was a little more not quite the athletic marvel and talents that Fedorov, like incredible
God-given skills,
God-given hands, few I've seen in my 25 years covering the NHL. But yes, okay. We're almost into trade deadline season if we're not already. Say this every year, take with a grain of salt, because when people start publishing the lists of scouts in attendance at certain NHL games, oftentimes those scouts are based in that city or nearby, and so they would have been at the game whether it was trade deadline season or not. With that caveat, want to note, Ottawa Senators General Manager Steve Staios was in attendance for the Canucks and Canadiens last night. Now, Montreal's only a couple-hour drive from Ottawa, so it's easy for Sens General Manager to make it and scout before tonight's game. But when Bruce Garriock, who has been covering the Senators since inception, notes that Staios is in attendance and the Canucks are open for business, that's probably coming from a knowing place. Should also note, Sens head coach Travis Green would be very familiar with a lot of Vancouver Canucks players, of course. And that's one of the things that you seek when you're making a trade is how much information do we have on the player who we're bringing in, because of the old axiom, you're going to know a whole lot less about the guy you're bringing in than the guy you're sending out. So do wonder whether something's afoot there. Needless to say, the Senators need to shake things up after the week they've been through, not to mention do whatever they can to beef up their goal prevention, given their league worst save percentage. More tire kicking on Elias Pettersson, according to Frank Saravelli, who says, my understanding is right now the answer to a move this season, no, although the Canucks have received increased attention and intrigue from teams on the Pettersson file. I think they'll be tempted by March 6th. I'm not sure I can see Elias waving and the owner green-lighting a trade. I got to sell someone.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I think that's one where you have to get swept off your feet, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I agree. At least not with Elias's B game. If he gets back to A game for a while, then that's interesting. But
Yeah.
more Canucks injury news. Foote says Demko. Foote's asked whether they have to shut Demko down for the entire season. He says might be possible. Also said he's got a couple of things going on, so multiple injuries.
Yeah, didn't want to drill down on which one was causing him the most problems. Wow.
And Marco Rossi is out for 2 to 3 more weeks.
And I think that
So
one
no
is,
Sherwood, no Demko, no Rossi. On top of the other guys they're already missing. Some of whom have barely. I mean, Blueger's played 2 games this year. Derek Forbert hasn't played much.
Rossi is a bit of a team tanky move. Adam Foote made reference to that again yesterday, that it's something that they want to deal with so they don't have to deal with it down the road. They've said that on multiple occasions. So you get the feeling that, if it's April 1st, there's 4 games left on the schedule and they're pushing for a playoff spot. Marco Rossi might even be playing in these games, but where they're not anywhere close to that situation. So no point in him playing.
Yeah. And then Henry Ravinskis. And if you don't know the name, he is a Vancouver Canuck player, or at least prospect.
Canuck, yeah.
He's been named to Latvia's roster for the Olympics. He's an injury replacement. Now, Ravinskis was brought over this past summer from Europe. He's been hurt a little. Has gotten up to 22 games with Abbotsford, 3 points. He's a 23-year-old winger who once played in the Quebec Maritime Junior League.
He was on the World Championship team last year for Latvia, so he's on their depth chart. And
not an injury replacement for Teddy Bluger or Teddy's Blugers, as he's known
depending on who
in
you're
Latvia.
referring to. Yeah, this is an AHL guy who got a lacerated leg, so he's replacing that guy.
Central Scouting is out with its midterm rankings of North American and European skaters and goalies. Gavin McKenna, Canadian winger from the Yukon and Penn State University, is the top-rated skater by NHL Central Scouting. The next in order, Keaton Verhoff, the big right-shot defenseman, ex-Victoria Royal, now North Dakota. Carson Carls of the Prince George Cougars, who's a left-shot defenseman who's got a lot of helium here. Chase Reed, who Cam Robinson has been very high on when we've talked to draft prospects. He's a right-shot defenseman at Sault Ste. Marie.
He and the next guy both have a lot of helium. Reed's got helium, and so does Caleb Malhotra.
And Malhotra Caleb, Manny's son, makes his way into the top 5. Shout out Jeff Merrick. We'll talk to him Friday. He's called this all season long. From the first week of the OHL season, he said, Caleb Malhotra is going to be a much higher pick than what people think right now. He's even wondered if the Canucks slide out of those top 3, top 4, and are down around 5, somewhere like that, picking whether Caleb Malhotra is their guy, because he is going to be tempting with that NHL pedigree and the fact he could win the OHL scoring championship as a 17-year-old, Blake.
As a 17-year-old.
Tynan Lawrence, who has just made the move from...
That's where I was going. Was the interesting one here is Tynan Lawrence, because a lot of people have him squeezing into the top 6, top 7 of the draft, and here he is down the list a little bit in terms of just merely the North American skaters. He has made the move from the USHL to Hockey East and Boston University. He's jumped into 3 games. Now he is making the transition, so no judgment on the fact that he has no counting stats through 3 games. But he's not exactly burst down the door either in college hockey.
Very good team, Boston. There's a lot of talent there, so there's internal competition for ice time. I would suspect he would be playing more with another NCAA team. And Blake, you say top 5 of the draft. I've seen some public lists have Lawrence rated ahead of some of these top 3 guys, Stenberg, Verhoff, and McKenna, because he's the centerman. He's the surefire centerman, the other wingers.
Well, I'd like to see him getting more, because Boston is actually having a tough season for them. There's 7 wins and 6 losses on the season right now. So that's lower than what they normally are. BC's 7-3, UConn's above them at 8-4. So I wonder if Tynan Lawrence can get a little bit more deployment as he gets more comfortable and can show his wares a little bit more. But let's see how long the lack of production continues here for Tanner Lawrence.
Also want to shout out JP Hurlburt, who's an American forward who has been awesome this year for the Kamloops Blazers, and he's up to 10th on the North American skaters list. 5 Giants players were ranked, headlined by Richmond's Ryan Lynn, the right shot defenseman, who sadly is now hurt, going to miss some time. Lynn is 13th overall in North American skaters. And then Mathis Preston of Penticton, they just picked him up in a trade with Spokane, checks in at number 24. On the European side of things, Ivar Stenberg is the number 1 prospect. I think we knew that. And the NHL draft, there's the European list for your perusals. Smits played at the World Juniors. He's a very big left shot Latvian defenseman with mobility. Oliver Savanto was terrific at the World Juniors. Blake, that's a 6'2", 6'3", 210-pound, 17-year-old Finnish center who's getting comparisons to Barkov because of his two-way play. Hermansson is a good puck-carrying Swedish winger. He's playing in the second division there with Modo. Poor Modo and the Twins team.
Yeah, they've been in the old for a while.
And then Viggo Bjork is the brother of Canucks prospect Wilson Bjork, who also had a tremendous showing at the World Juniors for the gold medal winning.
These central scouting
Swedish
rankings
team
are an interesting exercise because they often are far less flavor of the monthy. I would bet that Viggo Bjork is the second European skater drafted. That's where I'm going to bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just talked about Tyler
it
Lawrence
could easily
as well.
happen.
And even Hurlburt, all those guys, they'll generally outskate their rankings in these.
Inexact, because of course he didn't have access to all the data from proprietary data from individual NHL teams. But 15 years ago, Blake, I did a story in newspapers citing a SFU professor, Professor Peter Tingling, who did a study and went, NHL teams, they spend all this money on scouts. You got scouts in Europe, your scouts here in the States, regional scouts. You're flying them everywhere. You're bringing them together for meetings. You're not that much ahead, if at all, from just going down the central scouting list and taking the next guy.
Well, and even more so now, how much money is saved if you went with a 1/3 staff directory in your scouting department and gave them an internet subscription.
Yeah. Now, scouts would argue, and they have a point, the camera only shows you so much.
100%.
If you are there to scout an individual player, you're not just watching what he does on the ice or what he does on the field.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching him on the bench. How does he interact with coaches? How does he interact with teammates? Not to mention you're in the building. You're going to get an opportunity to talk with perhaps the prospect himself, but people around him.
And every scout will have an anecdote about how that has helped them.
Absolutely.
But in the end, I would say it is probably an incremental
it is
advantage.
A comprehensive exercise, though, Blake. I can remember I used to have an annual meeting with a friend of mine, an NFL scouter for the Denver Broncos, when they were winning Super Bowls with Mike Shanahan. And we would meet at a Tim Hortons, and I would go down the list of Canadian football players for that year's draft. This would happen every year around March. And one year he got a call while we were sitting there at the table, and he said, "I'm sorry, man, I have to take this call. We're interested in a defensive end out of Marshall University. We've just figured out he's got a learning disability. So here is his student advisor who is calling me back, and I've got a bunch of questions for her about how does he learn? Is he a visual learner?" I went, "Holy cow, you're doing some reporting there." And he's like, "Our jobs aren't all that dissimilar, actually."
Well, football's way different. You don't get as whole a view of the play. So football,
you need the all 22.
Yes, yeah. So that's different.
And the draft is going to take place in Buffalo, June 26th, 27th at the KeyBank Center. Round 1 on the Friday, the 26th. Round 2, the 27th. The draft was last in Buffalo in 2016. Blake and I were there. Austin Matthews went first overall. The Vancouver Canucks chose Finnish defenseman Olli Juolevi 5th overall. He played 41 NHL games, just 23 for the Canucks. And he was pretty much the nail in Benning's coffin, right? you had already screwed up the top 10 pick with Virtanen, we would come to learn, and then when you screwed up a second top 10 pick in Julevi. If you've got players from those two drafts, Blake, whomever they may be, take a look at who went after Olli Julevi and fill in a name. Take a look at who went after Jake Virtanen. People often say David Pasternak, despite the fact he went in the 20s.
But in that universe, you're not getting Quinn Hughes probably, right?
Yeah, that's true too. News from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who surprisingly, very surprisingly, actually, I'd seen some things this weekend about Dina Evanson and the way he was coaching in-game management, and it got my antenna up, and then next thing you know, here he is. He's gassed alongside his assistant, Steve McCarthy. 71-year-old former Vancouver Canucks assistant coach, the happy Haligonian out of retirement, Rick Bowness, is your new head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets. And, of course, he joins a franchise that our old friend Lawrence Gilman is now a part of as vice president of hockey operations. So two key managerial members from the 2011 Canucks have new homes all these years later in Columbus.
A lot of Canuck ties. Steve McCarthy, former Vancouver Canucks,
that's right,
as well. So lots of comings and goings there. Now, Columbus
Steve
is
McCarthy. He was the kid who got rushed to the NHL by a bad Blackhawks team, right? Like he was playing at 19 and had no business playing at 19. Is that right?
Columbus, by the way, 8 points clear of the Vancouver Canucks, having played one more game. So that's the good news, is that this team should get a little bit of a new coach bump, you'd have to think, because they're not a terrible team. They're a 500 team, like a lot of teams in below the bar in the East. And I see some people worried that the Penguins, with their injury woes now, could come back to the fold. The Penguins are at 51 points. They are currently 14 points ahead of the Vancouver Canucks. This is my point. The Vancouver Canucks would need to be a winning team for the last half of this season for them to squander their good chance of getting a top 3 pick in the NHL draft. They're going to be okay as long as they're merely bad.
Yep. Let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta. What's coming up on the program today? We've got JPat on all things Vancouver Canucks. Ooh, Jeff is spitting fire on rebuild and on that Thatcher Demko extension. Later in the program, we'll also talk NFL playoffs after the wild card game last night. Really nice scene in Toronto for Kyle Lowry. Gigantic news from the world of golf, including a British Columbia tie-in here with a journeyman pro made good. Fun story there. Milos Raonic is no more. Changes at the Vancouver Rise. Wow, a lot going on in the world of sports. We'll get to much of it after the Canucks with JPat. Menu brought to you by Greta. We had a fantastic time there Saturday for the watch party and for the first live on location RinkWide Vancouver. So thank you to everyone at Greta, the staff, fantastic for taking good care. If you need a venue for a team building or social event, check out Greta. Outstanding street food. The tacos are amazing. Arcade, always a fun time. Game for everyone. For more info, to book your event, go to gretabar.com. Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. I cannot believe the run I'm on the Bet365 bets of the day. 4 in a row. So while it's not the calendar week, sweep in the week, got a chance to go 5 in a row here, Blake, which would be a Monday through Friday. Even if it's a Wednesday
this is like
Tuesday.
The guy that
It's like the Tiger Slam. It's like the Tiger Slam.
This is a guy that scored 5 goals at the end of one season, starts October well, and you're going to claim the
6-goal streak.
Yeah.
We had the Bills. We had the Jake DeBrusk goal. We had the Winnipeg Jets. And then last night we had the race to 3 goals. I said the Habs will win the race to 3 goals, and sure enough, they did.
I won mine last night, too.
That's nice. Senators have the worst save percentage in the league. We've mentioned that. Now it is Miralainen tonight instead of James Reimer's heroic return to the NHL. Canucks counter with Lankinen, who hasn't been very good, nor is the defensive system in front of him. I am going over 6 goals. Let there be goals.
The line changed just in the last few minutes here. The Canucks are even bigger dogs now. And the numbers have just gotten so big, and it's against pretty mediocre opponents. I think I'm just going to take the Canucks to win. Plus 190 on the Canucks to salvage the road trip.
You've been doing this for 3 games in a row, and they keep losing on you.
I literally bet against them and won yesterday. Man.
There was at least one occasion last week. Oh, the Canucks are terrible. Everything's against
Going
them.
into the
I'm
Toronto
going to zig
game.
when there's ag.
Once.
This segment of presentation of Bet365, whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. JPat coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
This segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers in the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. People are probably thinking, oh, can't do that because then I have to install the thing in my garage. No. You don't. To get your 72 kilometers daily range on your Prius plug-in hybrid, you need just a plug, just a regular old plug. You get home early evening, heck, especially if you get home at 5:30 if you're a 9 to 5er. You just plug it in. That 72 kilometers is waiting for you at the start of every single day. You charge it overnight, or, there's over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. You can do it that way a lot quicker. But, your home is all you need. And in that way, you've got an electric car effectively. Got the gas if you need it for a road trip, but it's the easiest way to just say goodbye to the pumps. You can lease a 2026 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $109 weekly at 3.99% APR for 64 months with $3,300 down. That's it. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today.
As we welcome in Jeff Patterson, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. They've been busy with post games. Got another one tonight following the game in our nation's capital, our Canucks reporter. And Jeff, hey, they were right there, man. Right there. Yet
40
again,
good
according
minutes
to Coach.
Yeah. They were better, but we're judging them against what we saw in both Detroit and Toronto, and it would be hard to be a whole lot worse than they were in the center of the universe on Saturday. So, look, they scored a couple of goals. That was fun. They haven't been doing that much of late.
For 2 periods, it was a pretty fun game, actually.
Well, it was, but you have to be fully mindful that they were getting outshot by a 2-1 margin still. So, while, yes, on the scoreboard, they were right there, the Habs were skating circles around them for much of the night. And I will say this about the Vancouver Canucks, I suppose, that, again, it's sort of damning praise, but they didn't wilt when Montreal scored the 2 goals in 20 seconds, where I think a week ago, maybe they would have just packed it in and said, again, not our night, move on to Ottawa. So they did respond to that, but then there was no response, where the hybrid Prius will not fail you. Like, the Canucks were hammering the gas button there to start the third, and just there was nothing. There was no response, and they kind of ran out of battery. And again, that won't happen with the Prius, but it did happen to the Vancouver Canucks.
Well, and Jeff, we had the discussion late last week about please don't get embarrassed in Toronto, right? Like, the way the team was going, we had talked about how effort had not really been an issue, to Adam Foote's infinite credit and the players' infinite credit. Effort had not really been an issue. We started seeing effort creep in and be an issue in Buffalo and Detroit last week. We talked about it late last week. Please don't get embarrassed in Toronto. Of all the places to lose and lose terribly, Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, first Saturday back in January. I mean, it's the biggest possible audience where you can have your pants pulled down. And now this loss where they just give up a ton of goals and give up a ton of shots.
Outscored 11-3 in the 2 biggest hockey markets on the planet. I think the world knows the Canucks suck now.
Yeah, and look, there may be an easy antidote answer right now in terms of they're going into a very messy environment tonight in Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Centre. But Like, can it get worse from here, Jeff? Like, would you shudder to think what this franchise could look like if it's getting worse from here?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I've wrapped my head around that. There's 37 post-game live streams still to go. Trust me, I've looked at the schedule. They're going to run into a Columbus team that gets the new coach bump on Thursday night. And so, I mean, that move surprised me on a lot of levels, but that's for then. The Senators are in a bad way. They've lost 4 in a row and 7 of 9. Can't get a save to save their life. So this is sort of a misery loves company matchup, but that doesn't mean that the Canucks are going to win this one. So when will the losing end for the Vancouver Canucks? Your guess is as good as mine. Now, they'll leave Montreal feeling better about themselves than they did as they came out of that Toronto game. But quick turnaround here and back-to-back. And we'll see what this hockey club looks like. But where in December, for a while there, they had tightened things up and they weren't giving up chances and they weren't giving up goals. Since Christmas, it's just been an absolute free-for-all. And it was again last night in their own zone. And on top of that, guys, like Lane Hutson's a terrific player. I'm not even sure Lane Hutson played last night. And that's not a knock on him. They didn't need him. They got goals, like 4 of their 6 goals from defensemen, and Lane Hutson wasn't one of them. And Nick Suzuki figured in the scoring, but he didn't run the show, and Cole Caulfield. So again, it speaks to the depth and the assembly of talent that the Montreal Canadiens have there, that they didn't need their best players to ultimately be the guys that ran the show against the Vancouver Canucks. And so I think in some ways that makes it even more frustrating, I guess, from a Canucks standpoint, is that teams can get by with sort of their second guns going, and that's all they really need now these days to beat the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, I mean, Hudson had that one highlight where he was breaking ankles and getting oohs and ahs from the crowd. But right you are, Jeff. Let's ask you our poll question. Is there any reason to fire Adam Foote right now? We know how desperate this organization is in terms of trying to put some PR spin on what is happening this year. Do you think there's any world where they toss Foote overboard because they need somebody to walk the plank?
Oh, I guess I kind of thought, and we talked about this on RinkWide on Saturday, that felt like the kind of loss that might cost somebody a job. Ultimately, it cost DPD his position on the NHL roster. But, in terms of actual job loss, we didn't see any of that. My hunch is now that everybody in the organization is screaming in unison rebuild, that they recognize where they are in the standings and they're not going to climb out of them. And so to make a change for the sake of change, I don't foresee a coaching change at this point. I think you have to have your midseason replacement lined up. You saw that Columbus had to turn to a 71-year-old who we thought had walked off into the sunset, but hockey lifer can't get hockey out of him. So Rick Bowness is back in the business. But, does Manny Malhotra want any part of this?
Well, that was my follow-up, Jeff. Do you want to bring Manny into this environment, or would you just assume if he is your next coach, would you just as soon not want to drop him into this mess?
That's how I would lean at this point. Like, you've already asked an awful lot of him this season down in Abbotsford to think that he could come in here and make something out of this mess. I think, with all due respect to Manny and his coaching abilities, maybe a bridge too far. Offensively, Adam Foote has not been dealt a particularly good hand. That much is true. But there are two ends to the ice. This is one of the best defensemen of his generation, who I believe in his heart of hearts thinks that the system he wants his team to play can be effective. But part of a coach's job is to instill a system that works for the talent that he has. And outside of Filip Hronek, it doesn't seem like anybody is grasping what this coach is asking defensively. And we saw it again last night in those still shots, the screen grabs of 4 guys flooding the same side of the ice. Meanwhile, a couple of Montreal Canadiens are just fiddling in front of the net. And we saw that with the JT Compher goal the other night when Tyler Myers had wandered out to the blue line. It's a nightly occurrence. And they're 45 games into this thing. So, Adam Foote isn't without his faults, and there is plenty of blame to go around, guys. So I'm not singling him out, but I'm certainly choosing not to exclude him either. It all rolls up into a big ball that has the Canucks 32nd in the league. But in terms of coaching change, I don't foresee it now at this stage of a lost season.
the depth players all season long have not been that bad. Like they're getting like nice contributions.
O'Connor's been excellent.
Carlson,
He's
from
been better than not
Sasson,
bad.
from O'Connor. The depth players have played okay, and they scored another beautiful one last night. Carlson does the dirty work on the Pettersson goal, and then O'Connor and Sasson connect on a nice one. But, the big names, the ones that a lot of people would like to see traded out of here, Jeff, are the ones that are the most silent. What do the Canucks do with Brock Boeser? He is, to me, on the likelihood to be traded list, he is the furthest down of the veterans because he is Brock Boeser. But my goodness, his value is decreasing not only to them, but in the open market as well. Like, what do you do with Brock Boeser?
Yeah, well, he hasn't suffered the Jake DeBrusk fate just yet, and I keep thinking that at some point, even not even as punishment at this point, but just as a
mercy,
change up and whatever, sit him down for a night, back-to-back games, the nation's capital. Like maybe tonight would be the kind of night. Arshdeep Bain's the only healthy forward, but at this stage, not that I would be expecting a lot out of Arshdeep, but you're getting nothing, quite literally, out of Brock Boeser. The goal drought now up to 20, which is almost unimaginable, but the numbers don't lie. And so I thought Connor Garland back in the lineup gave you what Connor Garland does, a little jump. He had a little kick of the stick there. He always brings something a little bit unique to the. He had
an outside in move as well. Like he was dynamic.
No,
yep.
And so, maybe just getting Connor Garland back, but he's not a center. He's the other winger on that line. And neither one of them factored in the scoring ultimately for the Vancouver Canucks. So I don't know. I mean, it has to start with Brock. At some point, he's just going to have to bear down and try to make some things happen. All these 20 games, unfortunately, have all looked alike. Like, I don't see a guy that is showing me desperation right now. And so I wish I had an answer. I mean, I think the Canucks wish they had an answer, and I'm sure Brock certainly wishes he had an answer, but alas, here we are. So you're right. Garland getting back, that's good, but Connor Garland hasn't scored on a goaltender since late November. His only goal coming as an empty netter in Madison Square in the middle of December. So even getting Connor Garland back, you're getting a struggling player that isn't feeling it offensively. And really, that was sort of the big difference. Like, what was different last night from the game in Toronto? Well, it was the fact that a couple of depth guys who hadn't really chipped in lately were able to step up and make some things happen. And some of that was aided by Arbor Jacki, who had a really tough night on the Montreal defense. My goodness, that pizza up the middle on the Sasson goal was unbelievable. Or was that the Kane goal? No, that was the Kane goal. I can't keep. Then O'Connor split the defense of Jacki and Gooley. So, I mean, you're right. At the end of the day, some of these depth guys, they've been okay, but I also think it's important to note that, on 25 other teams around the National Hockey League, Max Sasson's probably not even in the National Hockey League lineup, right? Yeah. And I don't mean that as a knock on Max Sasson, but these guys are getting an opportunity because the team went out and did nothing last summer to bolster the roster and kind of created space for these guys that had a nice run to the Calder Cup championship. But ultimately, these guys are getting a nightly spot on the roster because this organization just doesn't have better players to replace them with.
We gotta ask the Sherwood question. I mean, that your best trade chip is on the sidelines. It's just how low can you go? How deep can this cut here?
Well, the risk of surprised. I mean, this was always the fear, and I think we've all kind of floated this notion. Now, maybe he's day-to-day, or maybe he'll never play for the Canucks again. Welcome to an injury update from your Vancouver Canucks. And I thought it was curious the way Adam Foote couched it. He was on the ice with the group in Montreal for the morning skate, and then he's saying, well, it could be 3 weeks, and it doesn't look promising. If you're Kiefer Sherwood in his camp at this stage, like, what would be the rush to get back in the lineup? I just think Kiefer Sherwood wants a resolution to all of this. So we're 3 weeks.
He's looked miserable. He's looked absolutely miserable.
He's got twin face going on.
And so I think there's like a conceivable world where we have seen Kiefer Sherwood for the last time. I'm not reporting that. I don't know that. But with 3 weeks to go before an Olympic break, and then a couple more weeks after that, and the same goes for Thatcher Demko. There's sort of ambiguous report there, but back in Vancouver, Adam Foote was asked about shutting him down for the season. I mean, maybe that is the best course of action, but with Demko on the wrong side of 30 now, and all of these injuries just compound. Like the idea of Thatcher Demko ever getting a completely clean bill of health at this stage of his career and at his age, it seems unimaginable to me. So it'd be interesting to see where that one goes for the Canucks' number one netminder.
And on that note, I mean, Nikita Tolipilo was looking like a viable option here, not as a starter, but I thought he was great. Peppered with over 40 shots, a lot of them grade A's. Like I thought Nikita Tolipilo showed that he can play at the National Hockey League level right now.
Yeah, and yet Adam Foote, he didn't throw him under the bus, but twice in his post-game remarks, and he didn't speak for all that long last night, but talked about goals that he would have, Tolipilo would like to have had back. And I mean, that goes for any goaltender, but I mean, of all the concerns around this hockey club last night, I was a little surprised. I mean, I think the coach was asked directly what he thought of Tolipilo, so he gave an honest response there. He was good early, certainly. I mean, the shots were 8-1 for Montreal, and it looked like the Habs were going to run the Canucks out of the building. And then they sort of settled in and ultimately got not one, but two leads. Tolipilo was fine. Yeah, I mean, he did what, travels all day across the continent on Sunday and then gets thrown in against one of the speediest teams in the National Hockey League. And the difference in pace from the AHL to the National Hockey League apparent. And I would think it would be certainly easily discernible if you're a guy between the pipes and facing an Arsenal on the other side like the Montreal Canadiens possess. So it was a tough call. I understood where Foote was coming from because Lankinen got forced into the game in Toronto, and they wanted to give him an extra day of rest, and he'll get the start here in Ottawa. But I think you easily could have said, hey, Kevin, we need you to go against Montreal, and we're going to let Nikita settle in and get the easier of the two starts here against the Ottawa Senators. But really, I think this comes down to this idea of, this is a team that's lost 7 in a row, 1 win in 10. What is their best opportunity to end the streak? Probably in Ottawa. So go with the best guy you've got available. That is Kevin Lankinen, and we'll see what comes here against the Sens this afternoon.
I want to ask you the poll question we had yesterday, which got such a big response, and I believe Mike has it there, but worst extension signed by this Rutherford Alvin management group, front office. There they are, Petey, Marcus Pettersson, Demko, Boeser. We went through it yesterday, Jeff. I think you can say Phil Hronik is a good extension. He's been awesome this year. 7.25 for a top pair right side defenseman is very good managing. The Drew O'Connor extension has been pretty good because Drew O'Connor's been excellent this year and gets on the score sheet again last night, creating goals. Other than that, my friend, boy, and to be fair, nature of the beast is you're going to lose more of these, I think, than you win because you're paying market value for players, and players don't tend to always, last through a long-term contract giving you market value. But you tell me, Jeff, which one of these is the stinkiest to you?
And I think lots of people, and I see the poll, I mean, just the sheer volume of dollars out for Elias Pettersson makes that an easy target. But guys, if we're looking at production against contract, like Elias Pettersson is at least producing at sort of 50 cents on the dollar for this group. I mean, they're getting nothing out of Brock Boeser. Marcus Pettersson has been a disaster this season. And through it all, I look at that Thatcher Demko contract and I get angry every time I see it because I go back to July 1st last year. The week prior to July 1st, they had made the Evander Kane trade, and people were still scratching their head and rolling their eyes and wanted to see what the Canucks were going to do in free agency. I think it's so abundantly clear now that this organization knew it had no plans to be any sort of player in free agency and had to placate the fan base in some way. And they figured, let's give extensions to Thatcher Demko and Connor Garland. And while we're at it, we'll double back on Brock Boeser. I think there was massive public relations at play on July 1st with they were first out of the gate on July 1st with the extensions to Garland and Demko, which tells you they had been dealing with those things. Those don't happen overnight, obviously. And so as it turned out, didn't ever go out and get the center that they talked about Evander Kane was it for an outside the organization addition, and they felt like filling from within when flexibility would have been the key in all of this. That Connor Garland didn't need the extension then. If you like Connor Garland and Connor Garland liked you, nothing was going to change. Get to the midway mark of the season, you could have seen how the season was going. And with Thatcher Demko, to me, it's inexcusable with his injury history that they didn't wait 20, 25 starts to see where is this player in his return, in his rehab, this incredible summer that he was supposed to have had that was going to take care of all this. And here he is on the shelf for a second time, and the extension hasn't even kicked in yet. So I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. And, you might have found a team that was willing to roll the dice on an expiring contract for Thatcher Demko, but with 3 years at that price point, I think he's pretty much untradeable.
And Jeff, after all those extensions and doubling back on Boeser, they ran out of time on Pius Suter.
Well, they did that, but also you may have heard over the weekend, guys, they're rebuilding. Did you catch that?
Yes.
Like this coordinated effort, lose 5-0 on national TV, and then from every corner of the organization, it's rebuild. You know the one thing I don't hear, though, in all of that, whether it was Patrick Elvine with the sunshine in the background in Palm Springs, or Jim Rutherford, who I assume is there as well, but he did his interview with IMAC, like rebuild. It finally dawned on them. They're 32nd and they're not getting out of this hole. So rebuild. I don't hear any accountability. None. Like there's never this is why we have to rebuild. There hasn't been any sort of acknowledgement to the fan base that these same guys that now want the opportunity to rebuild are the ones that have burnt this thing to the ground through so much mismanagement. And I guess I've said this before, and I've told this to Jim Rutherford, that he's not responsible for what came before him, but he inherited a fan base that was 50 years of anger already. And they seem surprised still by this. And I remember having this talk with Rick Tocchet as well. Again, they're not on the hook for the past, but they do inherit a constituency that has seen so much losing, especially in the last decade. The people are angry, and understandably so. And it sometimes feels like the guys in the front office just have these blinders on that, they got both hands on the wheel, trust them. It's fine to scream rebuild. I have seen zero actions that indicate a rebuild. You can say it all you want. That doesn't make it a rebuild. You can accumulate young players. That doesn't make it a rebuild either. You got to get the right young players. You got to get the right young players over and over and over. And so, as we sit here, it's fine that they want to all sing from the same hymn book now. Oh, yeah, it's a rebuild. But they'll be judged on their actions, not the fact that, on a Sunday morning in the middle of January, they decided that now was the time for all of them to get together.
Yeah, crisis PR messaging. They got shamed into using the word rebuild, and if this market keeps it up, they may actually get shamed into executing.
I can see
rebuild.
the Rutherford presser at the end of the season already here, guys.
Are they going to blame it on JT Miller and what happened last year?
That's already been used 7 times last summer. It'll get used again at the end of this year.
You think that has shelf life through till April?
Because then it sets up
15 months after the trade. You think that's got shelf life?
It'll be a woe is us about we didn't choose that scenario, and then ultimately Quinn Hughes wanted to leave, and what were we supposed to do with that? So these 2 cards have been dealt to us, and there was nothing we could do, Jeff. You think that's what it's going to sound like?
Yeah, I could certainly see that playing out. They were approaching their 5th trade deadline as a management group. This will be their 5th draft, their 5th trip into free agency. They've been at this for a while now, and here we are. So they don't get the benefit of the doubt.
Team is getting worse.
Right.
Team is getting
this idea
worse.
that they need to assess the situation and it takes some time. They're coming up on their 5th NHL trade deadline in which they have been in charge of this operation. So we'll see where it goes. But, earlier in the season, they were still using injuries. I think that one is starting to fade away a little bit. But at the end of the season, if they step back and look at all the reasons things went sideways, we'll probably hear from me about injuries again, because that just seems to be sort of a rite of spring every year here in Vancouver, that it was the injuries that derailed this hockey club.
All right. You stay healthy. You got a show to do tonight. You got another one. You got 2 actually on Thursday because you're in for me. Thank you for that, Jeff. Appreciate this. And Blake, we'll talk to you Thursday. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center and the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio built by Arbor Lee. Game night, make it a game weekend. Turn that ticket into a downtown getaway with a special Sekeres and Price right here at the Wall. Book now, 604-331-1000. Say you heard it here. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. Houston Texans demolished the Pittsburgh Steelers 36 in the final game of NFL wildcard weekend. This game was a snooze fest devoid of offense. Texans scored 2 defensive touchdowns in the fourth quarter to put it away. The Pittsburgh Steelers and embattled head coach Mike Tomlin have now lost their last 7 playoff games, giving up 100 yards rushing in each of them. And there's much heat on Tomlin, who has tied the NFL record for most consecutive postseason losses.
5 of those losses by double digits as well. So they're not really that close in these games either.
He's never had a losing season, always 500 or better, 192, 114, and 2 in the regular season, 8 and 12 in the playoffs. They are the first team in NFL history to lose 5 consecutive playoff games by double digits. You can see the margins in these 7 straight losses for those of you on visual platforms. Only one is a 1-possession game, a 3-point loss. They've run through 5 starting quarterbacks the last 3 seasons with identical results. Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph got them to 10-7 and a playoff loss. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields got them to 10-7 and a playoff loss. And Aaron Rodgers got them to 10-7 and a playoff loss. So that's not progress, and they are in need of a quarterback, and that's because Aaron Rodgers throws a touchdown on what is likely his final play. The only problem, it was a pick-6 touchdown. That could or should be it for the future Hall of Famer, one of the finest quarterbacks of this century, but as I saw Luke Wilson talking about last night on SportsCenter, I mean, you're picking down in the draft, so can you get your starting quarterback there? They tried it a few years ago with Kenny Pickett. Can they pull a rabbit out of a hat, get a Dak Prescott or Russell Wilson or Brock Purdy somewhere in the later rounds? Are you on the trade market for Kyler Murray or Tua or one of the quarterbacks who is failing out with his franchise? I don't know.
Seahawks did okay with Sam Darnold.
Yep.
One of the recycleds.
Yep. Well, we are in the era of the recycleds. I mean, the recycleds have done pretty well here.
Yeah, they have.
The other thing, and look, the Steelers have had 3 coaches in their history. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, all of them have Super Bowl rings. They do not change coaches willy-nilly. There is not a lot of knee-jerk to the Rooney family who owns this club. But I do think you have to move on from Tomlin at this stage of the game.
Insert Seinfeld meme. That's a shame.
So he's one of the last old school coaches. They practice a fair bit in pads. And in fact, other players around the league like seek out Pittsburgh Steelers players like, oh, how many times do you practice? You're really still practicing in pads? Which, look, I think if you gave Mike Tomlin one of these open jobs, Miami, Vegas, Atlanta, Tennessee, he would get the most out of them. Like I think his style works for a young team that needs to learn how to win. I'm just not sure it works at a championship level in the NFL. You know, I think back like 10 years ago, all those games against the Patriots, you knew the Patriots were your derby in the AFC. And Mike T's sitting there playing zone defenses and letting Tom Brady just pick them apart. Like, where's the Blitzburg? You've got to do something, Mike, to affect the greatest quarterback of all time.
Would Mike Tomlin do better in Oakland or in
Vegas?
Vegas.
Yeah. I mean, again, any of those young up-and-coming teams, I think Mike would go in there and instill a physicality in them and a fundamentals, and I think he'd have their attention. And I think he'd be a good voice. I'm just not sure he's still a good voice for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll see. As for Houston, they're off to play New England in the AFC divisional round. And programming note, early E&O here. We went through the NFL schedule next weekend on yesterday's show, and not all the times were fixed.
No.
So Texans-Patriots is going to be the early game Sunday, not the late one. That's reserved for Bears-Rams. I can see why you'd want the two big markets, L.A., Chicago, and that Bears Heritage brand in the primetime window. But, wow, that's a big ask of Houston. I mean, you get off the field Monday night around 11 p.m., 11:30 p.m. Eastern. You get back on the field Sunday, 3 p.m. So it's a short week, and it's a short day on top of the short week. So here's the schedule, and those of you on visual platforms can see it. Seahawks 49ers is 5 p.m. Saturday. It follows Bills Broncos at 1:30. Noon Sunday for Pats Texans, 3:30 for Bears Rams. If Seattle wins, they will, of course, host the NFC Championship game. If not, the winner of Chicago-LA would play host to the 49ers in that game.
I want to watch 3 of those 4 games.
Which one don't you want to watch? Houston, New England?
Yeah. Just tell me what happens.
Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud fumbles 5 times? 5. They won a football game by 24 points with the quarterback fumbling 5 times. He lost 2. He throws a pick. He's the first quarterback in playoff history with 4 fumbles, and he achieved that before a halftime. First playoff game this century with 4 fumbles or more, and he achieved that at halftime. He had 4 fumbles at the half. All that said, Stroud has as many playoff wins as Lamar Jackson. 3. Granted, all of Stroud's are in the wild card round. Jackson has just 1 win beyond that round. He's got 1 win in the divisional round.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the Ravens already. They're a bit of a riddle
already
too.
changed their legacy coach, right?
Yeah. And is there more to give there, or is this just what they are because of what Lamar Jackson is? We'll find out.
The owners of the Steelers and Ravens have a chance to do the funniest thing ever.
The swap.
Steelers hire Harbaugh, Ravens hire Mike T. Not going to happen.
I don't think that's enough change. Like, I'm sure those guys are different, but
we got the same guy, only he's white. We got the same guy, only he's black.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's time to go more new wave for both of those guys.
Gigantic news in the world of men's professional golf. Staring down a 4th straight season of competing with LIV Golf, the PGA Tour has repatriated 5-time major winner Brooks Koepka and extended an olive branch to former major champions on LIV in the hopes of getting them back for the 2026 season as soon as next month. Tour's CEO Brian Rowlap, and for those who don't know, Rowlap has succeeded Jay Monahan. They now call it a CEO, not a commissioner of the Tour. He pens a letter outlining the conditions for a, quote, return member program that applies to those major winners, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, former Open champion Cam Smith. They, like Koepka, would be welcome back on the PGA Tour if they make a $5 million charitable donation, if they agree to be ineligible for the player equity program for 5 years, and those are projected earnings somewhere between $50 and $85 million, and for the FedEx Cup bonus payout. All told, it could be up to or exceeding $100 million for these guys to buy back in, and they're staring at a February 2nd deadline to decide.
But
so here we go. It had gone so quiet. We had heard that they were fighting LIV, then they're merging with LIV, then the U.S. Congress is involved. It's like, you just told us how evil LIV is, and now you want to merge with them? So there was mistakes galore from Monahan and the PGA Tour in the early days of LIV. They were clearly caught off guard, clearly panicked, raised the purses, made marquee events, which was so ridiculous, elevated events, which of course meant the others were non-elevated events. Blake, we had talked about this for a long time. You don't need most of the players who are on the LIV Tour.
Nope.
They don't move needles. DeChambeau moves the needle. Rahm moves the needle. I'm sure Cam Smith moves the needle all that much, but he's a big Australian name. He's a terrific putter.
Here's the thing, though, with Cam Smith. Cam Smith is playing shitty golf.
Yeah, he is.
So Cam Smith is probably going to make the deduction, hey, it may be short-lived, but if these guys leave, I've got a chance to win some extra tournaments here. I'll stick around.
Wow.
I don't think Cam Smith wants to come to the PGA Tour because guess what? He'll look even shittier.
And lose his card eventually.
Yeah.
DeChambeau is set for renegotiation here with LIV. He has just been handed all of the leverage. And apparently there were players upset on the practice range yesterday in Hawaii getting ready for the first tour stop this season. But honestly, guys.
No, come on. Big picture.
I mean,
there is some
you're
teeth
ranked
to this.
like 75th to 150th in the world without a major victory, just be happy you're on tour.
And
I realize it's
to
a
be the best, you
player-driven
have to
and
beat the
owned
best.
entity, but by the same token, like you've got to know who you are and who you aren't.
But just qualify on your own merit. Just play good golf, and
That's
you're gonna be on the PGA Tour. Play good golf, and you're gonna beat
And you've got nothing to
other
worry
golfers.
about.
Like
That's right.
it's in your corner.
If you're in the top 50, you're making all this FedEx money.
I would love DeChambeau and John Rahm to make the turn. I think John Rahm does.
Well, the early
DeChambeau-
reports are that Rahm is leaning against it, but we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts here. Like as you say, if DeChambeau jumps, then what do you have there on LIV? Because DeChambeau is the one guy who is actually bringing eyeballs to that tour. In a lot of
he fits the
in a
personality.
roundabout way in some cases, because so much of it is on his own social channels. PGA Tour season starts this week in Hawaii at the Sony Open, Honolulu, where Abbotsford's Nick Taylor is the defending champion. It is 1 week late this year after the cancellation of the Century Tournament of Champions in Maui. Koepka is already confirmed for the Farmer Insurance Open in 2 weeks at famed Torrey Pines in San Diego and the Waste Management Open in Phoenix early next month. Here's the other thing about this return to membership program. The PGA Tour's cutoff for majors / the Players' Championship winners is 2022. Phil Mickelson won the PGA in 2021. Some say that was an intentionally drawn cutoff line to exclude Mickelson. Others say, no, 2022 was selected because that's when LIV Golf started. It may just be that it was a
It's one and the same.
happy offshoot that Mickelson was not offered a return to membership
Yeah,
program. Phil has been so vocal.
It may not be pinpointed on Phil in and of himself, but it's pinpointed on guys like Phil and Phil included. So it has the same effects.
I will give it to Phil. Nobody talks with the same. Nobody talks about the yard goats with the enthusiasm and straight face that Mickelson does. The team components. LIV Golf.
I do wish that Phil would come back to the tour because.
He gets to play the majors, right? Because he's
After cheering him on to win for a lot of the years, I liked Phil
I was
for a
a
long
Phil
time.
guy for many, many years. Too.
And now watching him lose is just as much fun. So I would love to see that again on a more regular
Well, he's a
basis.
great on-course talker. We love the on-course talkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Phil Mickelsons, the Jordan Spieths. DeChambeau, too, is an on-course
Plus,
talker.
even at his best, he put himself into trouble. He used to be able to get himself out of it.
Yeah.
Now he can't, so it's fun.
Sticking with golf, congratulations to Vancouver's Richard T. Lee of Marine Drive. He won the LIV Golf Promotions Tournament this weekend, so he's headed to that tour. The good news, Richard, is you won the tournament and you're heading to a big tour. The bad news is that tour may not exist if DeChambeau, Rahm, and Smith jump ship. We'll see if the Saudis want to continue investing in it. The 35-year-old Lee has played all over the world, 15 years as a professional. He's won 6 times on the Asian and Korean tours. Biggest paycheck of his life, also the first Canadian to qualify for the LIV Golf League. He joins Coquitlam's A.J. Ewart, who won the PGA Tour final qualifying stage during his tour card a few weeks ago. 2 Canadian winners on the promotional tournaments this season.
That's
and we
crazy.
talked to Leah John, who finished top 10, of course, and earned her LPGA Tour
And she
card.
almost won that tournament, too.
Well,
she
was
had a
leading
chance.
after 2 rounds. I mean,
Imagine if that Canadians had swept all 3 big tours.
there was a world. Leah was leading into the 3rd round of that tournament.
Yeah.
News from the Northern Super League champion Vancouver Rise. They announced a leadership transition for year 2. President Sinead King leaves after helping build Vancouver's first pro women's team and inaugural title run. They wish her the best. Quote, during this leadership transition, Vancouver Whitecaps FC executive team will provide strategic and operational support to Rise FC. Rise FC and Whitecaps FC will continue to operate as distinct independent entities. And Thomas Muller, a Pied Piper for MLS, less than 6 months after one of Germany's greatest footballers ever joins Whitecaps FC, another accomplished German is coming to MLS. The San Jose Earthquakes are nearing a deal to sign Timo Werner of RB Leipzig, according to Tom Bogert, the MLS insider.
Former Chelsea and Tottenham man.
Werner would be a DP, 29-year-old, 57 caps with Germany, 24 goals, won a Champions League and Club World Cup with Chelsea, and German titles with Leipzig. Yes, also played for Tottenham. Over in Europe, Jonathan David scored again for Juventus and continues to crawl back into the good graces of that rabid fan base.
Really nice goal,
He
too.
was on the outs with them after failed Panenka.
Well, he was already on the outs. The Panenka was the exclamation mark of, okay, this guy's done. We don't want him. And since that moment, he's been outstanding.
Yeah.
And the coach now seems to take a shine to him and is
He's
really
one of the great goal scorers the
cheering him
world
on.
over. I mean,
yeah.
And poor Ollie Ahmed, we said it was a strange transfer for Ollie to want to go from the Whitecaps to England's Norwich City, mostly because they're right down at the bottom of the championship table and are at risk of relegation into the 3rd division of English football. But it's getting worse. Norwich has reportedly sold its top forward to TFC.
There seems to be some debate about it. The coach was asked about it yesterday and said he's not leaving this window. But before the FA Cup match on the weekend, Josh Sargent of the U.S. men's national team texted the coach and said, I'm not coming. It's transfer related. Told the coach he's not coming to the match.
Oh, my.
And so there's a big soap opera there.
God, Ollie.
And it's also just chef's kiss for TFC because TFC just can't do anything just by the book, easy peasy transaction. Now they are taking part into this whole exercise and bringing in a player that, you know, like if you're Robin Fraser, are you super excited about bringing in a guy who's texting his coach, I'm not showing up to the game today? Mm-hmm. Like that's now precedent in this player's locker? I don't know. But, yeah, if you're Ali Ahmed, you're looking less favorably on this transfer, I think.
Kyle Lowry receives a fawning tribute in what is almost certainly his final game at Toronto Scotiabank Arena on Monday night. Member of the Philadelphia 76ers, the crowd was chanting his name as the clock was winding down. He was reluctant, but eventually put into the game by head coach Nick Nurse. A nice symmetry there as the coach of the Raptors' only NBA championship team where Lowry starred. His teammates also pushing him into the game. As TSN's Josh Lewinberg notes, the next ovation Lowry gets here is when his number 7 goes into the rafters for the Raptors.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Blake, I'm not here to gatekeep fandom. Do I follow the Raptors? A little bit. Do I cheer for the Raptors? A little bit. I don't have the same affinity for them as a quote-unquote Canada's team as I do for the Blue Jays. But I will say, it does. Every time I hear him referred to as the greatest Raptor, I just shake my head. It's as though Kawhi Leonard was not a part of that championship team. And I understand Toronto. He rejected you, didn't want to re-sign with you, and so he's not in the same good graces that Lowry is. But let's not pretend. Kawhi Leonard was the best player and the reason why you won that championship. Furthermore,
Okay,
and I realize
we know the distinction,
and I
there,
realize
though,
Vince Carter asked out as well, but Vince Carter was an international superstar and licensing behemoth at the height of his career with the Raptors. Also a better player than Kyle Lowry ever was.
Okay, the Kawhi Leonard one is an easy one to float away. It was a 1-year experiment. No one's calling him the greatest Raptor of all time because of 1 year.
I understand that, Blake, but it's almost like he has been erased from the championship history of that team.
People do not
when
discuss
he
him,
was
no.
the single biggest reason why that championship was won.
That part is true. Now, as for the Vince Carter versus Kyle Lowry debate, I mean, that's Trevor Linden versus Pavel Bure in a lot of ways, right? Like Kyle Lowry is Trevor Linden. So pick your fighter.
And lastly, happy trails to Milos Raonic, who has announced his retirement from professional tennis after a 17-year career. The big man from suburban Toronto really got the ball rolling for Canadian tennis as all those young up-and-comers followed him. Bianca Andreescu, Leila Fernandez, Denis Shapovalov, Felix Auger-Aliassime, now add Vicky Mboko, Gabriel Diallo. All followed in his enormous footsteps. He led Canada to the Davis Cup semifinals in 2013. Our country would go on to win that title in 2022. Made the Wimbledon final in 2016, beating the great Roger Federer in the semi before falling to hometown hero Andy Murray in the final. He also lost to Murray in the Aussie Open semis that year. 8 career titles, rose to number 3 in the world.
Did he really?
In 2016, won 383 matches on tour. That's a 67% clip. And he represented Canada at the Paris Olympics just a couple of years ago. Blake, he's no longer dead to me.
No?
Old listeners and audience members will get that reference. Aussie Open starts Saturday. Qualifiers ongoing with the draw later this week.
8 titles seems light. That's what
it's hard to win titles though on the ATP
That's
Tour.
what Felix has
especially
already.
In the big 3.
Felix already has.
But
8.
he played in the middle of the big 3.
Yeah.
Like Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer weren't giving many of those up.
Yeah.
Results of the daily poll question from yesterday. Worst contract extension signed by the Rutherford Alvin front office. The options here were Boeser, Demko, PD, and Marcus Pettersson. The winner is?
Boeser.
Nope. Petey, 41%. Demko, 22. Boeser, 21. MPET, 16. David, how can the answer not be EP, paying superstar wages for a mid-level player? Get that. Jim voted for Boeser because his contract makes him the hardest to trade and because he won't perform to the value of the contract in any of the 7 years. Get that. Jack, probably Marcus Pettersson. Zero logic whatsoever. We went over this yesterday. I mean, you brought him to town and immediately signed him. Didn't even see. You had time, chose not to use it. Same with Demko. And A-Frame says, I went with Demko. No need to extend early with his injury history. Errors and omissions from yesterday's
program. You can make the argument, though, on that poll question that the best performing player on that list is Elias Pettersson.
Oh, for sure it is. For sure it is.
He's got 4 goals in his last 8.
For sure.
He's not performing to $11 million, but he is the best performing player of that list.
He's the best player on that list.
Yes.
Easily. Yeah. East and O's from yesterday and beyond. It is from beyond. Last week we were talking about Canucks who have at NHL record. They've given up the most 500th goals ever to individual
750.
players. Yeah.
750. 50 goal scorers have got
500 goal scorers.
Sorry.
Yes.
500.
And we talked about Kirk McLean giving up a milestone Gretzky goal. That, of course, was 802. Forgive me. It was Richard Brodeur who gave up Gretzky's 500.
Again, milestones. The Canucks would love to give you a milestone.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Cost you nothing. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. Of course, we will be 10 a.m. again on Thursday with the early start in Columbus. And of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.